Hello everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Weekly Poker Showdown brought to you by Party Poker. I am your host, Jaime Staples, and this week we have the biggest guest I've ever had on this podcast before, and I don't say that to riff on any of the past guests we've had. I mean, how do you rank people one over the other? You know, it's subjective, but this guy is a guy that has made a massive impact in the game of poker. I think we can all agree, whether you love him or hate him. I'm certainly on the love side, and that is Daniel Negreanu. So I had a great 1-hour conversation with him this afternoon, asking him all about sort of poker, the poker industry, his new partnership that he has with GG Poker, leaving PokerStars, just everything I could to pick his brain a little bit, and I think it's really interesting conversation. So stick around for that. It was a great combo. Before we get into that, though, let's talk about some of the stuff going on in the world of poker this week. Let's kick off with some of the online poker news from the past weekend. First piece of news, we have Bankroller giving their bankroll a boost with a win in the weekend's Sunday Million at PokerStars. The event failed to hit this guarantee this week. The UK-based player collected $105,000 with the site's flagship weekly event, overlaying by 29.8K. Party Poker hit its $500,000 guarantee in the weekly big game this past Sunday as 110 entries built up a $511,370 prize pool. Haven for Bots took down the event for $125,285. Pay and Play finished third for $63,921. Now, the troll screen names that people choose sometimes are successful. Haven for Bots, you have made it to the Weekly Poker Showdown. Congratulations for winning the tournament. Moving on, we have some industry news here. So the World Series of Poker confirmed the summer events and said it is monitoring the coronavirus situation. Tour says there's no changes to the 2020 schedule planned. Seth Polanski, Vice President of Corporate Communications for the World Series of Poker, said, "We've been monitoring the situation. We will continue to lean on the experts in the field for guidance. At this time, all of our events and schedules remain intact and are planned to go on without interruption." Total of 61 events have been confirmed so far for the 51st annual edition. Latest addition to the schedule is the $250,000 Super High Roller, the biggest buy-in in the event's history. Moving on to some of the live poker results from the past week, Timothy Adams becomes the first Super High Roller Bowl Australia champion. Adams pocketed 2.1 million Australian dollars for the win. Cale Burns took down the Aussie Millions 100K challenge recently, finished runner-up for 1.2 million Australian dollars. Adams beat out 16 strong entry field to claim the 9th edition of the event, following Daniel DeVore's victory at the Caribbean Poker Party in 2019. Stephen Chidwick was crowned the Australian Poker Open champion. The British player bagged about $1 million Australian dollars, 950,000. I'm going to round up for Stephen Chidwick. I'm okay with that. In total prize money for the victory, the result sends Chidwick past the 34 million mark in lifetime earnings, overtaking David Peters in the all-time money rankings. It's pretty crazy, man. I remember first starting online, and I would see the Stevie444 avatar. I think he had like a Rick and Morty too, but it was always a screen name I looked up to. It's just crazy that he is 34 million in lifetime earnings. Like, incredible results. I hope he keeps it going. Chidwick's victory in event number 5, a 25K no limit hold'em for $399,000, saw him become the third different player to top the leaderboard, only for Andres Nemeth to retake the lead after cashing in event 6th. All came down to the 100K main event, where Chidwick played for his third cash at the festival, enough to overtake the Hungarian and claim the 50K championship prize. So congratulations there to Stephen Chidwick. Triton's Super High Roller Series postponed due to the coronavirus outbreak. The 2020 season was due to kick off in Jeju, South Korea from February 10th. The festival has now been postponed due to the virus outbreak until further notice. Triton Poker explained, "It's with a heavy heart that we inform you of the postponement of the Triton Poker Super High Roller Series in Jeju after the World Health Organization called the coronavirus outbreak a public health emergency. The safety of our players and supportive staff remains our utmost priority." Disappointing news there. I love what Triton's doing. I love their series and their high roller events. It's such a pleasure to watch those, so I'll definitely be staying tuned for the first event of the season and look forward to seeing it on Twitch. Party Poker Live Millions gets ready for a season opener in Uruguay. Millions South America is running from February 6th to 16th. Casino in Punta del Este, Uruguay, set to play host to the season opener. Host of Team Party Poker, including company chairman Mike Sexton, who we had on the show last week. If you haven't checked that out, you should. Mike Sexton is a legend. What a couple weeks in a row. I just have to say. We'll keep going. Dmitry Urbanovich and Jao Samao attempted to attend. $5 million guaranteed main event scheduled from 12 noon on February 11th. Other highlights include the 25K Super High Roller, 10K Finale, and 500K guaranteed. On to some Party Poker news. Party Poker Live has announced the 2020 Millions schedule and introduction of Millions Passport. So the tour is going to make its debut in Cyprus and London for 2020. Some great stops. I'm a big fan of those. Millions Vegas, Millions Online, and Millions Caribbean Poker Party make up the other 2020 legs. So pretty strong 5 tournaments there. Millions Passport is valued at $11,000 and can be won online via $109 buy-in Party Poker Satellite. Satellites feed into weekly Sunday finals that offer no direct buy-in option. So you have to feed into the Sunday flight to win that passport. Passport allows the holder to enter any Millions event worldwide, including the online leg slated for September 2020. Holders also get to enjoy true VIP treatment, including luxury hotel rooms and off-the-felt extras. Passport grants entry to other exclusive tournaments. So there you go. I think great 5 stops. I'd love to go to Cyprus. I've never been. Really want to go there. And London, one of my favorite cities in the world. Definitely a spot that's going to be worth checking out. Party Poker has launched $500 spins this week with a $1 million top prize. So now there's a $1 million prize on 5, 100, 250, and $500 buy-ins on spins. So that's pretty cool if you're a spin player. And the biggest news for me personally, because I'm an online guy and I'm a tournament guy, that is KO Series has started just this week. 10 million guaranteed KO Series is kicked off. 230 total events across a range of buy-ins from now until February 16th. All events played in the popular progressive knockout format. More money goes into the prize pool in Party Poker's knockout-style tournaments due to the elimination of rake on the bounty portion of the buy-in. So if it's a $22 tournament, it's $1 in rake, not $2 like you're going to find around the rest of the internet on other sites. So pretty good deal. I think we're the best place to play knockouts for sure. Special edition spin games gives players a chance to win their seat into the series for less, so you can spin your way into bigger buy-in events if you're interested in that. So that's it for all the online poker news, the live poker news, the industry news, what you all have been waiting for. I know you're just like, can we talk to Daniel now? We can talk to Daniel. It's tough to intro this guy. I mean, over 40 million in live earnings, 6 World Series of Poker bracelets, 2 WPT results, World Series of Poker Hall of Famer. And to me, I think the most influential ambassador of the game that I can think of, at least from my personal life. There's no one that has laid the path for me to play professional poker and take part like he has. So a huge personal hero of mine. I have massive respect for him, and it's a real honor to interview him. So without further ado, let's hop into the interview with Daniel Negreanu. Joining me on the podcast this week, we have the one and only Daniel Negreanu. Daniel, thank you for taking the time today.
Absolutely. For my good old buddy, Jaime Staples, anytime.
This is pretty surreal for me. I know for sure I would not be playing poker if it wasn't for you. As I was preparing for this interview today, I was thinking back to my beginning in poker. And I was serving beer and sandwiches at the halfway house on a golf course, right? So I'd serve these groups, and I'd get them out as soon as I could so that I could get back into my Daniel Negreanu small ball book so that I could start learning how to crush the noobs at the 5-cent, 10-cent games. That's my origin in poker, so it's pretty cool to talk to you today.
Yeah, I remember you as being, like, really in a lot of ways the OG when it comes to, like, starting from nothing and streaming and building an audience. Because, you know, Jason Somerville's obviously a guy who built an audience, but he was already playing in the big tournaments and he had sort of an in. But you were a guy who just, like, liked poker, started streaming, and, like, your name started to grow simply because people enjoyed watching you. So you're like an OG that way. A lot more people try to do that these days. But you set the way for them, clearly.
Cheers. Yeah. Well, I think it's part of the modern poker dream and how it's it's how it's changed over time. So I was lucky to be at the right place at the right time. Twitch is a beautiful thing. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit. But I wanted to start with just actual poker playing before we get into any industry stuff. I had a question on Twitter from Yorkie Puds, Matthew Pitt, who said, do you think it's still possible for a complete amateur to climb up the various stakes and become a professional player today? Is that dream still alive? So a lot has changed in the last 10 years. You know, I just wanted your thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, no, absolutely. The dream's still alive, right? It just depends where you're looking, right? If you think you're just going to walk into Bobby's room and, you know, be able to beat these guys who've been playing for 20 years, probably not. If you think you're going to go online and play, you know, the highest stakes and be a favorite, yeah, I got I got some bad news for you. That's not going to happen. But with hard work, study, there's no reason why someone couldn't, become a great player. In the last couple years, we've seen less of the guys reach the highest levels, but a guy like Ali Amshurovich, for example,
Yeah.
he's a guy who kind of is, a young kid who's broke in. So, he's essentially proof that the dream is certainly still alive. Alex Foxen to a lesser degree as well, in a different way because he's been around a little bit longer. But the dream is still alive. But just understand that it's not as simple as logging on, playing tight, waiting for good hands, and like, yay, I get to win. Like back in the golden age, anyone that was competent could make money playing poker. Now it requires a little bit of effort. Well, a lot of effort.
Right. Yeah. It's not playing the small ball 4-7 suited anymore in the cutoff. That's not, that's not it. So what has changed, do you think, over the decade or so that I've been playing anyways? Like, how has the approach shifted as we've entered into a different era in poker to get good?
Yeah, well, that's sort of a two-part question. What's changed in terms of like the technical aspects of the way poker's played? I would say the biggest difference is people fold a lot more, right? Part of what made small ball so effective was you could play a lot of those 4-7 suiteds, as you mentioned, and if it came like 7-7-3 or 4-4-9, or you've ever hit a flop like that and you had a guy who had 2 jacks, you're going to get all his chips. It's not the case anymore. People have gotten a lot smarter, so playing those hands now, especially out of position, doesn't work out because people are not necessarily paying you off. They're playing much more pot control. In the past, people would bet really big on the flop, bet big on the turn. You check raise all in and they go, call and shrug, and lose all their chips. So that's one big significant difference. As far as like the way to which to learn now, Twitch is one good way where you can watch people before you even spend $1 playing. You can learn from people who are already doing, a good job of that, as well as, software and different things. Like it's easier to get really good at poker now than it's ever been because all the tools are there. The problem is they're available to everyone. So if you're not getting better and everyone else is, you fall behind a little.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I wanted to ask you about Masterclass actually, because every single one of my YouTube videos starts with everything you do at the table conveys information.
Hey, you can't be all loosey-goosey eating a sandwich.
That's it. Yeah, that's the poker memes nowadays. So I wanted to ask you about that experience making a course for beginning poker players and sort of, the experience.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. So, you've been on sets, you've done stuff behind the scenes, and you know what it's like putting on a high-end production. I've never seen anything like Masterclass. The level of, even the green room, right, was very large. They had very exotic snacks like, grass-fed beef sticks and all this weird stuff. But the quality of production from the lighting to the staff, the crew, the amount of detail, like this was the coolest, most high-end production I've ever been involved with. And then to be associated with people like Steph Curry and Serena Williams and Wolfgang Puck, Samuel Jackson, like people at the pinnacle of their craft. I felt like it was a really cool opportunity to bring poker more mainstream. So for example, if I'm into cooking, right? Well, I go buy Wolfgang Puck's course. And then, look at this, poker. And if I already have a subscription to Masterclass, I can take that on. So it was a way to like be a lot more mainstream. And I'm shocked, they were shocked with how big of a draw it was. Like they spent a lot of money marketing it, as you see every video you do. It's got my face on it.
Yeah.
Right? But no, they spent so much because it was well worth it. They were bringing a lot of people. I honestly think it's a steal. Like there's obviously for more advanced players, you can spend thousands of dollars on coaching, which makes sense for you if you're a pro. But if you don't want to spend that kind of money, the cost of like $90 for my masterclass is absolute robbery and stealing. Normally for the amount of information I put into that 3-day weekend, that's at least $50,000 to $100,000 that I would probably charge to do that for a group of people. And you get it for $90. Yeah.
Yeah, with the leverage. I think it's a really nice onboarding now between, you got Twitch and YouTube, you've got the free resources, and then you have the masterclass style, like, all right, now we're starting to get serious. And then, like you mentioned, that high level stuff, but it's a really nice mix between the three. And I actually didn't subscribe to Masterclass for any poker content. I was on there before trying to learn like creative stuff, like interesting video stuff. And then I see your class and I see Ivy's class later. About poker, and I've watched them, particularly for the live poker stuff. I really enjoyed like the tells aspect and all that. It was really cool. So no, I think it's great. I think it's really good, and they seem to be doing things well. So
yeah, top of the line.
Yeah, for sure. So for people that are looking to go pro and looking to make poker a living for them. What sort of things stand out to you in terms of big mistakes that group of player makes when trying to take it to the next level and make poker sustainable?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question, but there's in there because there's a lot of them, right? You could list a whole bunch of mistakes. First and foremost, I would think is that I always try to teach people when they're playing poker for a living is like, okay, if you make $2,000-3,000 a month, that's decent, right? But if you spend $4,000 or $5,000 a month, that's a problem. Okay.
Right.
I remember, and I won't name the player, but there was a guy who had a lot of money, and he wanted to get staked to play Bellagio 10 and 20 for me, and he wanted me to stake him. So a staking deal would look like he gets 50% of the profit. So before I said yes, I was like, okay, well, how much do you think you can make in this game per hour? Like, how much do you think you can beat it for? Then I asked him questions like, well, how much is your monthly nut, right? So when I broke it all down for him and said, okay, you're spending $25,000 a month to survive, which means you'd have to make $50,000 a month just to break even, which means per hour, if you were the best player in the game by a large margin, you'd have to play a grand total of 140 hours a week. Okay?
Yeah.
That doesn't work. That's not possible. So I think writing out a plan, being very clear on what your goals are. Not everybody needs to make $1 million a year to be happy, but being realistic too, like keeping track of your results, making sure that you're not just hoping, because like he was just hoping to run good. I'm like, yeah, but this plan doesn't work, bro. Like if you lower your expenses from 25,000 to 5,000, now we're talking. Now we have a plan that works. So the biggest mistake I think people make is playing too high stakes, chasing, and not factoring in living expenses, travel expenses. Like if you're a tournament pro and you travel the circuit, like you have to factor in, well, how much is the flight? How much is the hotel? How much is food going to cost me? Then of course, what is the rake? Ooh, the bad word, right? And then so now you have to factor all these things out and go, is this even worth it for me to fly to Atlantic City to play in this tournament? Well, how big is my edge? So you have to add up all these things and treat it like a business.
Right. Now, when you were going through that in the beginning for you, I made a lot of the mistakes you just outlined when I was figuring it out as well. I mean, I think everyone does. So did you make those mistakes? Did you learn through them? Were you kind of hoping at the beginning or were you kind of meticulous from the beginning when you were playing?
Yeah, I'm one of those people that in certain spots of my career, you want to put underneath viewer discretion is advised. Right. Do not try this at home. I would often be playing 8160 limit hold'em with a $2,800 bankroll, which is really stupid. Okay, I made a lot of dumb mistakes. However, in my teenage years when I first played limit hold'em, I did the right things. Like I tracked my results, my hourly rate, noon to 8. I tracked every expense. If I was tipping, I kept track. If I had a coffee or whatever, I would keep track of how much I was spending each day. And then I found at the end of the year, I'm just spending too much money. And I had a real good sort of plan in Vegas, playing noon to 8. In Toronto. When I moved to Vegas and started playing, a lot of bad habits started to creep in. I started doing the 24, 48-hour sessions. A lot of it was this. Like for those that travel from Toronto, there's a charter flight on Thursday and a flight on Sunday. Okay, so I'd want to stay in Vegas a little longer. So typically that Saturday night, I would play all night to see if I had enough money to stay. And then I'm like, okay, I had a winning session. I got 1,500. Right. I'm good. And then you lose. Then Wednesday night, I'm like, oh shit, I'm a little short. So we got to grind all night. And if I lose, go back home on Thursday. So health-wise, playing all night, sort of stuff like that, not having a good schedule. Those were all, major mistakes that I, eventually corrected.
It seems like when I ask for poker advice from most professionals, it's always in hindsight, like I screwed up on all these ways, but here's the way I learned how to do it. It seems like there's so many people that, sort of went about it the wrong way, the wrong approach, but then survived and learned after. But then
I would say there's less of that today. Like that in my era, my God, I was one of the young guys. Like everybody, they don't know what bankroll management. What are you talking about? Right. You had to buy and you played. And then if you lost, you scratch your head and you look who you can borrow from.
Yeah.
Today, I would say, especially the kids that come up from the online generation, they're much more practical. They're they're much smarter about bankroll. They're much more in the Timex, Mike McDonald camp, who's very analytical, nitty, if you will. And a lot safer with understanding this stuff. That in my generation, the Doyle Brunson one, the generation before me, even wilder. There was no, thought to keeping rent money aside. No.
Right. Yeah.
Wild West.
Is that a problem that poker has changed that way, because you hear cries from the old generation sometimes that the heart is gone and the characters are gone, and the craziness or the excitement of poker has gone with the rationality of nitty 200 big blind or 200 buy-in bankroll management. Is that an issue, do you think, or is that just how the game evolves? Like, are we destined for that?
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue that people got smarter. Obviously, people getting smarter, getting better at the game, making better decisions makes the games tougher. So we all kind of like, suffer with that. But it's like you can't stop progress, right?
Right.
The advent of computers and software and, smarter, younger generation kids having, the benefit of seeing what mistakes their priors made, like Doyle Brunson. Like I grew up in a time when Huck Seed and Lee Salem and all these guys were in and out of money like crazy. So I got to watch, the mistakes they made and learn from them. And these kids today learn from their, the previous generation. So I don't think it's a problem. I wouldn't say that's an issue. I would say if there's any sort of problem, it would be in terms of like speed of play in a lot of cases. Like, a lot of people, when they're breaking down a situation, if they're doing the mathematical problems in their head, it could take 45 seconds to a minute. That doesn't lend itself well to like, casual guys on a Saturday night want to have some drinks and gamble, and they'll probably take their money and go play in the pit. So everyone cutting some corners, playing a little bit faster is something that we need to address in moving forward, both in cash games and tournaments.
Yeah, I'm curious as to how to do that. I was just talking about that on my stream about bubble situations actually in tournaments. And there's a spot I think in tournament poker where we're not necessarily playing optimal. So let's say I'm a short stack and I'm nearing the bubble. It's smart for me from a mathematical point of view to play as few hands as possible in that situation, because like I don't want to play very many hands because the bubble's kind of important for me. So like if I was a robot and I had no social awareness, I would just take as much time as possible until the clock was called on me and then fold my hand, right? Now that doesn't fly. No one's okay with that. We need to play faster. But then how do we modulate what is acceptable, or do we just leave it up to the individual to decide, or do we institute rules and people push it as far as they can? Like, how do you draw the line there?
It's a very difficult question because, frankly, it's not unfair. It's not wrong for a person to use the rules to benefit themselves financially. Like, how do we make the argument that, like, no, you should make a decision that's not in your financial best interest for the good of the game?
Right.
So that doesn't work, right? What we need to do is create rules or create a system where they're not as easily exploitable, right? One of the things you can do is, hand for hand earlier. There's no easy fix for something like this, right? I am a big proponent of creating some sort of like chess clock rather than a shot clock, but a shot clock works. If we did the bubble where everyone's shot clock is just, exponentially faster, something along those lines. But as it stands, like, how do you tell a kid where this money means a lot to him and he knows that he's been given 500-second time bank to use as he chooses? Like, who are we to say he can't use it on the bubble, right? Yeah. That's his prerogative. Like, we can't yell at the guy. In the old days when it was all live poker, like, you could yell at the guy, you can make him feel uncomfortable. Hand for hand was not even a thing. This wasn't an issue until Oklahoma Johnny Hale. He was the inventor of the stall. No one did this until he figured it out. And then but back then we considered it cheating. Like, it wasn't just a simple, like, oh, you looked at the guy and like, he might be buried in the desert for crap like that.
Right.
But, today, because people, like most of them, a lot of them come up from online poker, it's like, well, listen, these are the rules. This is the time I'm allotted. I'm going to use my time as I choose to. So, the only thing we can do is create rules that punish that kind of behavior but we still make it, fair and equal for everyone. Right.
That's got to be the approach. I just find it difficult sometimes because there seems to be social pressure in those situations. But I sympathize with the people pushing their, operating within the rules of the game. I think it's a really hard thing, and I don't know the answer. I think about it all the time. I'm not sure, but I'm sure we'll evolve and move forward. Okay, so the most common question I get for sure, Daniel, and I know you probably have a ton of advice on this from the last 2 decades, but I want an update, and it's about bankroll management. So I'm going to create a scenario for you, okay? So let's say Daniel Negreanu, he's starting out. You've got an apartment in Toronto, okay? Rent is $1,500, utilities, food, whatever. It costs you about, let's say, $30,000 a year to live. And you've got a $50,000 bankroll. What is going to be your approach? What's going to be your buy-in bankroll limit? Like, how are you going to approach that situation if you're starting today fresh?
Well, first and foremost, I'm going to scout out what games are available to me, right? Like what stakes are available. And typically what I do, or what I used to do when I was trying to build a bankroll, was, let's say, for example, 50% of that bankroll is safe and protected. So like that 25K, I'm not taking shots with it. If I'm down to 25K, I'm going to play a limit where I'm very safe and I'm not going to go broke. But with the top 20%, maybe 10% of my bankroll, I may play higher stakes and take some shots to try to, build the bankroll that way. So, for example, if I'm if I had that kind of money, let's say limit poker, because it's easier to convey for me, because that's what I did. If I had a $50,000 bankroll, paid $30,000 a month, I would look to probably play somewhere in the neighborhood of 40, 80, 50, and 100 limit. And if it didn't go well, in the first couple of weeks where I lost, 30, 40% of my bankroll, I'd probably step down to 20, 40 or 15, 30 and just put in more hours and more volume to recoup the bankroll. Once the bankroll was recuperated, as long as the game quality was good at the 50 and 100, I would go up. If the game sucks, like this is a mistake a lot of people make. They want to play higher because they think they'll make more money. Well, what if your hourly rate in a 50 and 100 is $30 an hour, right? But your hourly rate in a 30-60 is $40 an hour or $50 an hour because the game quality and the people who play it. The highest stakes doesn't necessarily mean you make the most money. The game with the most value and the biggest hourly earn is the one. So I would look to probably be in that range, playing limit poker, playing no limit, probably in the neighborhood of something like 5-5, 2-5 blinds, maybe 5-10, avoiding bigger than that. Like I think 5-10 is pushing it. And if I did play 5-10, I would probably short stack, which is annoying and shitty. But if you're grinding, you got to do what's best for you.
Yep. Right. I remember times when I was first playing live poker, the 1-2 game in Calgary. Stampede's on, the NHL plays right next door. And you'll have Cowboys shoving in for $200 blind. And the 2-5 game, they're in for 1,000, so the game is twice as big. And yet it's just like all the best players in the room, just like 3-betting each other and trading back and forth. And it's just like there's literally drunk guys playing blind just looking to gamble with you on any two cards. So I saw that firsthand. That difference.
Yeah, ego is a big part of it, right? It's very difficult. I remember the times when I would go to Vegas, and I'd been for example, let's say I was playing 4 and 800, things didn't go well, and now I've got to drop down. I basically went broke. But walking into the poker room, everyone knows you're a 4 and 800 player, and now you're in the corner playing 30-60. There's an element of pride and self-awareness where you have to be like, listen, you guys can mock me, laugh, whatever you want. You can be like, oh, he went broke. We knew he would. But I'm going to do what's right for me. I remember a time many years ago, I basically was pretty much broke. And this was after playing 2-4, 3-600. And Huck Seed loaned me $2,800, I think, right? And I made a bet with two people, just mostly like a gentleman's bet, that I would play 140 hours in the next 2 weeks of 30-60 limit hold'em after playing 4 and 800. So 30-60 limit hold'em, and I had to win a big bet and out. So I ended up taking that 2,800 and winning something like 23,000 over 2 weeks playing 30-60, paying Huck back, of course, winning the bet. I put in 140 hours. All I did was play. That's 10 hours a day, every day. And I did it. And it was a powerful experience for me because it's about discipline. It's about just putting your nose to the grindstone, putting my ego aside. I'm looking upstairs and I'm seeing all the guys playing the big game. And I'm like, I want to play in that game, but listen, I wasn't, rolled for it. But I knew that I could rebuild. And I always had a lot of confidence in myself to do that. That's why my strategy was always willing to take shots that were too risky for the average person, because I knew I had the mental capacity to drop down in stakes and rebuild.
It seems like that's so important, the up and down. So I take that away from your advice there. Don't be afraid to move up and down. I like that. I think that's good. So let's talk about the change in Daniel Negreanu's professional life outside of actually playing poker here. You've got a slightly different hoodie on than maybe the last time that we spoke here with the GG Poker. It's looking good. I like it.
You too.
Yes. We were teammates for a while there, but a lot has changed. I remember hearing the news that you were going a different direction from PokerStars, and then just a couple months joining GG Poker. So walk me through what that was like, because you were an institution at PokerStars.
Yeah, as you said, I was there 12 years. That's a really long ride to be a company, and I think, and I don't know if you felt similar or different, but for me, I felt like it was sort of becoming a little bit monotonous. I've been there 12 years. There wasn't a lot of new, different things that I felt like I could contribute. And They were clearly going in a different direction. I wasn't able to stream. Like I wasn't gonna, uproot my life and leave Las Vegas to go to a place where I could stream on the site. So I think for both of us, for them and for myself, it just made sense to, split. Financially, I'm fine. Like I don't need the endorsement deal. I was also, starting a new life right around the same time with my wife now, Amanda Leatherman, who is Amanda Negreanu. And it just felt like, a really good time. And we were very excited about it. And I didn't have any plans going into the World Series of, signing with anyone else. I definitely got some offers, some interest. My agent was like getting phone calls within hours. And I sort of figured I'd take a hands-off approach. I'll do my vlog all summer and not really engage in anything. And then, we had that snafu with my staking issue. Like, we set up the site for it to work and it didn't work right and blah, blah, blah. And so out of the blue, the people at GG Poker kind of came to us and says, we do this already on our software and our client. Like, would you like us to do it? Hell, do it for you. Not within GG. So they weren't not like saying like, you have to be sponsored or anything like that. They just did it as a favor and maybe start a relationship.
That's a great move. That's good.
Yeah.
That's
so they did this for me and I thought, wow, this is really great. And they set it up and they're obviously experts in terms of software and stuff like that. And then finally, the owner, I met with him and, we just started talking and, about the staking thing. And, he was talking about like what they can do with that. And then we sort of, he sort of came back around to like, would I be interested in working with them to grow GG Poker, the network itself? And, like I said, I hadn't really planned on signing anywhere else or doing anything new, but I really kind of liked the idea of, in a lot of ways, similar to like a startup, right? Obviously, Party Poker is an established brand. PokerStars is an established brand. They've already got, the wheels churning and doing a lot of good things. But GG's kind of new. And I felt like, man, this would be fun, right? To take something that's growing. In the last couple of years, GG's really like moved to, the third largest site, I think, on online poker right now in terms of a network. So I was like, well, why don't I help them grow? And a lot of things blew me away. The staking platform within the client was like really cool to me. I was like, this is really, really neat. And, seeing all the high stakes action they have and different things and the mobile software and kind of like what they expected of me really worked for me and my lifestyle, right? There's no GG Poker. Like Party Poker has Party Poker Live, right? So you guys travel, you play all the tournaments, PokerStars, same thing. GG Poker, we don't have a tour. So, that's not expected of me. So it really was just like a perfect fit at the perfect time. And I really like the people involved. And that's important, right? Like obviously, in your time at PokerStars, you saw different people in and out as time progressed. And I'm sure you're with a great group of guys there at Party Poker, the John Duthys of the world, the Rob Youngs, doing great work. So it's easy to work with them. And that's very important to me, is working with people that we're aligned on. Like I get their vision and I think it makes sense. I think it's logical and it fits with kind of my vision for what, online poker should look like. It's supposed to be fun. Like right. I get like you're on your phone playing, like you want to have fun. This isn't designed so that, you can squeak out a living. You can make money, of course, on any online site, but like the whole purpose of it should be to engage everyone, not just professionals.
I think the fun angle and what you guys are doing there is really smart. I mean, it's a little bit weird in that I remember at Stars, like just being so in the Stars bubble and not knowing at all what's going on. But now on the outside, seeing what Party Poker is doing, what GG is doing, and sort of hopefully coming to rival PokerStars and offer some competition to people that are playing online poker. I mean, I think everyone wants
really
that.
That's really important. You touch on that. That's super important, right? Anytime you have what develops to be like Monopoly, there's less incentive for that, that group that has Monopoly to invest, right? But when you start having competition, now you have to keep up a little bit. So when Party started to put those big guarantees on, that spawned, the PSPC. That's good for players, right? All these different guarantees, all these different things that people are doing to try to win over the customer is a good thing. So people have a choice on their Sundays. What do they like unlimited reentry, or do they want to play like the GG Masters, which is a freeze out? Giving people an option, having more companies thriving in the industry is a good thing for them, of course, but also for the player who's like, oh, maybe I'm running bad on one site and I'll go play on another one for a week, or whatever the case may be. I think it makes sense if you're playing online poker to try them all out, see what you like best.
I agree. Yeah. And I want to hit on the fun angle too, because I think that's something that I just champion all the time on my stream. I think it's so important. It seems like in poker, we didn't really need the fun part. It was just money raining from the sky forever. As a financial instrument, it's just like the dream was all that was needed to have it be successful. But I think, as games get harder, like it actually needs to be enjoyable to just play poker.
Poker has to compete now, not just with other poker sites. We have to compete for people's eyeballs, for gaming, for like for all these different things, the entertainment that I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. So like the entertainment dollar is spread now. There's so many different ways in which people can spend. So gamifying it, making it fun. Like we have a lot of features that are like not designed to for multi-tabling pros, but like you can squeeze cards, right? Well, you don't. That's not a thing that you need to do. You can rabbit hunt. So you fold pre-flop and you can see what the flop would have come. Like that doesn't offer anything in terms of competition. Like it doesn't give you any, it's not skill related. It's all just fun. You can run it once, you can run it twice. All these added little things, bells and whistles, if you will, formats, different funky stuff are what attracts new players in quick based games. Pros always, they don't like spin and goes because they're like, oh my God, they're too crapshooty. But guess what? Spin and goes, they bring people in, people that are waiting at the doctor's office. They've only got 10 minutes. They're like, all right, I'll lock one up. I'll play something real quick and, casual and things like that. So we have to be mindful of like what brings people in. And then once they're in, maybe they will start to play some of your bigger tournaments or maybe even some cash games and things like that. But you got to grab them with something that looks like fun, is fun. And again, maybe not necessarily the easiest thing to manage when, you're a professional, but you have to think bigger picture about just expanding, people's interest in online poker, period. Whatever form that takes, whatever goofy kind of all in or fold or what. I like all in or fold, okay? It's a stupid game, but I freaking love it. I don't know. It's just like a little bit of crack cocaine for me. But when I want to blow off steam, all in or fold is like my favorite format.
Right, yeah. So with these like new games and the niche games and the games that are enticing to a poker noob to bring them in, I totally believe in that concept. Where do you stand philosophically on how to price this from a poker operator's point of view? Because there's counter arguments of, let's make this so that professionals can actually win at this, right? And make it actually give it a chance as a poker format. Or let's just make this so that poker pros aren't really interested in this and it's just for the new players. Like, do you have any thoughts on what the right approach is for poker in the long run in that regard?
Right. So you want to have an offering of both. You want to have offerings where pros can make a living and they can do really well, which I think multi-table tournaments is pretty much, established. Like those are beatable. There's cash games that are beatable. Now, certain games, let me ask you this. How do you prevent, right? Bots are an issue. Artificial intelligence, that's evolving. Now, if you create a game that's so simple, like all in or fold, right? With 8 big blinds, that's very easy, incredibly easy for someone to play perfectly, right? So to create a bot that plays perfectly, right? If that bot is beating the game, like how do you stop them from overwhelming it and destroying it, right? Like Chinese poker was, remember Chinese poker when that was a big thing? Everyone
it popped
was like,
off, yeah.
Right, we should offer Chinese poker. But then you realize, like, well, wait a minute. It's just too easy for bots to beat it. So the idea behind those games should be that they're fun, right? And if you allow it so that bots can beat the game, then you'll destroy the game. For all the recreational players will just get killed. They'll take all the money and finish the game. So maybe that's a game where with the jackpot format, there are times where, it can be very, very profitable, like if you hit. But then maybe there's other times where like it's really not about it's similar, much more similar to like a casino style game where you're not really winning here, but it's about having fun. So if you're a professional, you don't look at that when the jackpot's low and be like, oh, I can beat this. But maybe when it's higher, you say, listen, I want to get a piece of my, piece of that jackpot, and it's actually plus EV. But the only way to keep bots from overrunning those types of games is to set it up in such a way, unfortunately, where bots can't beat it. Right.
Right. Yep. That makes sense. So zooming out on the industry, if you will, I like the zooming out questions. Do you think we're going in a good direction? Like, do we have a path forward in online poker specifically to where we can actually have that part of the industry grow and thrive again? Because it feels as if it isn't necessarily at its peak.
Yeah, well, legislation's a big part of it. Obviously, in the U.S., it's a big market. California, New York. Also, a liquidity issue of getting these fenced-in regions like part of one ecosystem. That's obviously better. If you could have everybody in the world, like the old days, playing on the same site rather than .it or .fr, you just expand the player base. But I do think in a lot of ways, companies are starting to realize, all of the companies, whether it's Party, Stars, or GG, starting to realize how important it is to cater to, quicker formats, more casual players, less so than professional players. Because I've always believed this, right? There's, three aspects of an ecosystem. You have the house who takes a rake, you have the pros who take money out, and then you have, the depositing players who lose, right? There's one of those three that are imperative and crucial, and it's not the pros, and it's, the house to a second degree. If you had to rank them, it's the depositors, the people putting on the venue, putting on the games, and then the pros are last, right?
Yeah.
They're like the least important, and we've always sort of been trained to treat the pros as like VIPs. Like, we'll give you, extra money, we'll give you all these things, but like when you break it down, it's like, well, these pros are kind of, if the depositing players stop playing, you're not gonna be able to build a game around them,
right?
They won't play, right? You have 8 pros, they're gonna sit down, look around the table, go, I'm not sitting. They're gonna wait for the depositing players. So understanding that ecosystem, I think during the boom, everyone lost track of it because it was just money flying everywhere, right? It's like, wow, there's so many people coming in. But then you started to see, like, as time went on, players got better, pros got better, depositing players stopped playing as much, the games got tougher. Now new players would come in and they get destroyed and smacked. So creating bounty formats, knockout tournaments, spin and goes, whatever you want to do, those are important to give the casual player some more incentive to come back. And I think that every company that offers online poker is looking to do stuff like that now, I would imagine, because it just makes financial sense for everyone involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still think like the pro. To me, it seems like the pro's job is to supply the dream to poker. Without the pros, there's no more dream, and without the dream, poker becomes a bit of a shell of what it used to be. That's how I think about it, anyways. But it seems that dream is smaller. Like it's not back when I started. You would just fire up 12 tables. You just play as many as you could because you were making money on every table. It doesn't matter if you were good or not. You just needed to like kind of have a pulse and be able to pay attention to 12 tables, and that was it, right? Whereas now you have to be good at the game. You have to actually win. So
yeah, no question about it. And like in terms of, so we saw data, and obviously when I was with Stars in the past, we saw plenty of data that showed like we saw people that were depositing, they were having fewer and fewer winning moments and redepositing even less often, right? Like today, like in 2004, you take a random guy, he deposits $200 and he plays like 50 cents a dollar. He'll have some winning sessions, he'll have some losing sessions. A new player, he's probably going to lose it, lose his $200 at some point, but not right away. Today, that same guy, random guy, puts $200 in, he won't have a winning session if he plays more than 200. Not one. He'll get killed. He'll lose every single time, and guess what? He's not going to want to play anymore. So these other formats, all in and folds, the spin and go type, things that are faster paced, like that are more luck based, they will have more winning moments. Where in tournaments as well, where oh my god, I cashed. To keep someone involved, to keep someone interested, if they cash once with the top 20%, whatever, it's not about how much money they got, it's about how close they were, and it feels like they can win. Unfortunately, we saw sort of a predatory, cannibalistic type behavior in cash games where even myself, right, I was like, you guys realize how bad this looks? Like, I'm a professional poker player, right? But I'm obviously not one of the top online players. I would sit down in a game, within a third of a second, it was full because all these guys are using seat scripts, right? Mm-hmm. I would play, there'd be a waiting list, whatever. As soon as I'd quit, they wouldn't even play another hand.
I remember that, yeah. I remember watching that.
Now imagine, I laugh, right? But imagine I was a random guy who saw this environment. What would I think in my head? I'm like, okay, I just played against robots. They're all cheating me, and they're only playing because of me because they think I'm the sucker. Why are you doing that? Like in the old days, we always knew. You start a game before the live one gets there. He sits down, you continue to play. Then when he leaves, you don't all stop playing. It's disrespectful, it's rude, and it's like, I get it though. It's a very competitive environment at high stakes online. So nobody wanted to play negative EV situations, if you will, but at least play neutral EV situations. Like I remember spots where players would get caught in a hand, in the blinds after the live one quit, and they would like say in the chat, like, do you want to check it down? So that we don't lose any more EV. It's like, that extreme is really, really bad. I think high stakes online poker, especially cash, will continue to dissipate. I just don't think that there's a big enough market for that sort of environment. And I think like it makes sense to just be more casual, promote tournaments, smaller buy-in stuff that is more about fun, recreational, rather than like seeing people just get absolutely picked apart and destroyed by predatory behavior.
Yeah. Well, I mean, none of the fish, if you will, are playing there, right? I've talked with Rob Young, I've talked with Jeff Gross and some people that play in some of those big games, and I've been on the apps where they're playing, and they all know each other, and they're playing huge, massive games that we haven't seen online in years. But like, why would they go play on any site, whether it's GG or Party or PokerStars, when they're just gonna get, fleeced by a bunch of pros that don't really care about their experience or when they come back.
And what we're seeing as a result of that is online and live, obviously live, is the privatization of certain games. And, this is actually, a lot of people are seeing this as an epidemic or a problem. There's unfortunately no easy fix for this, right? Like, so for example, if I want to go play at Aria, I've got 7 suckers that I know. We all say, okay, we're going to show up at 4 p.m. We get a table and we make it 8-handed. So nobody can get in the game. I've got my own little private game at the casino. And there's nothing really wrong with that. I mean, there's nothing they could play at home. They're just playing in a casino because it's easier. The issue comes up when you bring that game and now you see people playing in the other games and the live ones and you recruit them to your private games and cannibalize. And it's sort of becoming a very cutthroat business in that regard. But a lot of it stems from the fact that like a lot of the recreational players were not having as much fun sitting down at a table with a bunch of pros because it was getting slower and because they just weren't winning often enough. So for their perspective, it makes sense for them to just congregate amongst themselves and say, pros, we don't want you. Like, there's plenty of huge games in LA and in Houston that are super lucrative, right? Mm-hmm. The rake is absurd. Like, I know this one guy, he has a game in Houston, it's PLO, 50 and 100 blinds, okay? They take $200 a hand.
Right.
$200 a hand. But if you were a pro, you would salivate to get in this game because every pot is like 30, 40K. So you would happily pay this like absurd rate. He doesn't allow pros to play. And if he ever did, it would have to be a cut. So unfortunately, that's what we're seeing is a trend towards that. And there simply just isn't an easy fix for this thing. Like, I've thought long and hard about what to do about it. And it's really difficult to police, whether someone's poaching your players or whatnot. And like I said, you can't stop 8 people from going to someone's house and saying, we're going to play poker.
Yeah. Well, is that the poker skill of the 2020 to 2030? Is just like your ability to create a network around yourself that are interested in gambling with you.
Right. So I asked that. So everyone talks about who's the best poker player in the world, right? Mm-hmm. And now I say to myself, okay, well, define it. What defines the best poker player? Is the best poker player the one who plays the game the best, or the one who makes the most money? Right? Dan Bilzerian might be the absolute best poker player in the world because he plays in games that are so freaking big with blind people who he can't lose to. Yeah. However, if Dan sat with all the geniuses and wizards, he'd get crushed probably, right? But who's the fool here, You can mock Dan and say, oh, he's no good at poker. I'm like, okay, cool, bro. Cool story, wizard nerd. But, like, he makes freaking 100 times more money than you make, right? So you're right. Poker's always been a game where you're only as good as, the game that you're in. I could be the 4th best poker player in the world, the 4th best in the whole world. But if I sit with the other 3 that are better than me every day, I'm just a sucker. Simple as that, right? So game selection is something that you really, want to be mindful of. And I think a lot of people are taking that to heart now, and they don't want to play against a table full of killers.
Right. Yeah. There needs to be more nuance in regards to who's good and who isn't good at poker. I mean, at least I think so, because I hear all the time in my chat, people get on Gus Hansen. They talk down to Gus Hansen, who had a big downswing online. But I always say, like, he was playing, 5 of the top 10 players in the world at the time. Like, yeah, he might have lost to Tom Dwan and Patrick Antonius. But, like, don't think that he's not going to mop the table in your $22 tournament. Like, he's not bad at poker.
So funny. It's so funny because when you read, social media or forums or whatever, you get all these guys who are maybe playing 1 and 2, mocking and laughing at these guys playing 1,000, 2,000, talking about how bad they all are, right? And it's cute because, like, it is what it is. Like, this is what we do in society. We all play armchair quarterback about how, we talk about in sports, oh, that quarterback sucks. This guy sucks. This all kind of thing. And you just have to, like, I don't take it personally. I know Gus doesn't care at all, right? Like,
why would he?
It's kind of like a desired image to have is being a big sucker because you could probably get more action if you do that. But poker players, I think online, like, there's a sort of like a negative environment in a lot of ways, in a lot of online, like, chat or social media type of things where people are just always looking to tear others down to stand on their shoulders, like they feel like they're going to feel better about themselves. And I know it doesn't work, right? You might feel good in the moment to say a really nasty thing to someone like, oh, you suck, bro, blah, 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 blah. But do you really feel like in your heart that you like are happier as a result of spending all your time being an internet troll? I doubt it. I would say that, I mean, I've gone through it myself. Like I've been a troll, like I've gotten involved in the dumb, social media. As I get older and wiser, I realize like how much wasted time that is. But certainly in poker, there's a lot of jealousy, a lot of ego, and a lot of a feeling of like, if I'm not a millionaire and this guy is, he's lucky, he's a jerk, I don't like him, and I'm just unlucky. And it's not a very productive frame of mind to be in.
Yeah. It's not particularly enjoyable. I find that online too. It's frustrating at times, but I think, just illuminating the good people in the media. Like I think of Robbie, Robbie, the media guy, he does Card Player Life and stuff. Like guys like that. Yeah, bringing those guys up. I mean, I think there is the good eggs too, but they're sometimes not as vocal. So it can be pessimistic at times.
Yeah, that's the sad part. It's not just in poker, in society in general, is what sells. Negativity and conflict and scandal.
Fear.
Right?
Yeah, and fear too.
In the poker industry, the biggest stories we hear about that we spend weeks on is Mike Postel.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much discussion about that, and so much less about all the charitable work that poker brings in, how much money we raise, the millions and millions of dollars that poker tournaments raise, like the good things that people do to like, give their time to teaching the game to new people, whatever the case may be. It's like, that's all cute and whatever, but the stories that get the most hits, unfortunately, are the tabloid-like things that have the negative headlines, which is what some people use to build a brand, which is all based on negativity. And it's unfortunate that sort of works in our society. And I don't see that changing anytime soon, but I wish it would.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Before I let this one go, back on privatization, just for a second. Tournaments. We've seen tournaments start to become privatized. We've seen that with the Triton series, who I think have done like an amazing job. I love watching their content on their series. So I know I'm taking a loop back here, but tournament privatization, like, is that the next wave? Do you think that's coming?
In some high stakes circles, it already has. And I actually think the way that they did it was pretty damn cool. The way that they set it up to get because here's the thing. The reason the one drop started to falter with, Geese, a lot of these guys that are businessmen, sure, they can afford the $1 million or whatever, right? But they don't want to be like the sucker. They don't want to be like, the only live one playing against 8 pros and being taken advantage of. Like they have a sense of pride as well, right? So how do you create enough of an even playing field for them where they feel comfortable? One is you cap the number of people that can play. And two, you create a system like they did, which is, I'm a businessman, I want to play, I can invite one pro, and I can have a piece of his action, we can do whatever we want. And now you're going to have a 50-50 split, right? That creates a good ecosystem, like a balanced one, where the pros are happy because they get to play in a great tournament, the ones that are invited, and they get to play with people they like. And then, the recreational players feel like, okay, well, I'm not that much of a sucker in this field. Like, I'm better than that businessman. He's a dummy, right?
Right, yeah.
And so stuff like that, because, like when you look at some of these, like, high-stakes tournaments, like that or Poker Go Studio or whatever, sometimes, like, there's 13-player fields, and I'm like, dude, all 13 of you are, like, excellent, top-notch professional poker players. What's the incentive for the guy with $25K extra to just sit down and play with you guys, other than the experience? That's a tough sell, just is.
Yep. So for Daniel Negreanu in 2020 and forward, where are you in your poker career? What are you looking to get done and work towards in poker?
It's funny you say that, because normally every January I write up poker goals and all that kind of stuff, and I release my results from the previous year. I haven't done that yet because I haven't tabulated them, but I will. I'll do that part soon. But as far as my poker playing, it's really taken a back seat to really sort of, being on the business side of like GG Poker and helping really, because I find like unlimited reentry annoying. Like I like the prestige of freeze out tournaments. So the new innovation that we came up with, the GG Masters on Sundays, is $150 buy-in with no reentry. Really trying to build that. Like we had 1,940 players last week. Every week has an overlay because they kicked up the the guarantee to 300K. Smaller, obviously, than some of the other ones with unlimited reentry. But I've been spending a lot more time creatively thinking, from a marketing perspective, ways to continue to grow the site, create innovative ideas. Working on my health, I've lost, like, since Rosvedov, which was a shit show for physical health, I've lost 16 pounds of fat. like not muscle. I haven't lost a pound of muscle. So much leaner. I've been reading more, spending a lot more time with the wife. And looking at the schedule, I think World Series of Poker will be where I really gear up. Maybe the U.S. Poker Open. But as far as like poker study, stuff like that, I've really kind of taken time off. Like I'm not in the lab every day, put it that way. I'm kind of like I will get back in there right before the World Series and get, freshened up. But I'm 45 years old now. I've been playing poker over 20 years, 25, 30 years now, that I don't feel like I need to be in the lab as much as maybe somebody who's up and coming. Because, I digest information very, very quickly. So just watching a few streams and getting a sense for what people are doing now, because the trends change every 6 months. I feel like I can keep up to date pretty quickly.
Yeah, span the decades. I mean, if you were around, Mike Sexton was telling stories about you brand new in the casino last week. So if you're still around and at the top of the game, I think you can hold it down. You're a newlywed as well now, though. So how is life post getting married? How have things changed for Daniel Negreanu?
So I can honestly say that it's been blissful. Like we match each other so well. Like a lot of people, when we're out and about, like we're extroverted, we seem like we're always life of the party type people, but we're both massive introverts. We are homebodies who like to stay home. She loves to watch shows. We get involved in the shows. She reads a ton of books. I've been reading a lot with her. We really like spending, a lot of leisure time together. Like quality time is something that we share. We have a great system where like I wake up earlier than she does. So I get my few hours in the morning to do my hockey between 4 and 10. She lets me watch my hockey. Then we do stuff later. So, she's my best friend, has been for a very long time, really. And, we see eye to eye. Like we are so committed to the marriage, which I think is important. Like, because relationships, I've been through plenty in my life. Most of them didn't work out exactly as planned. Right. But what I've learned over time is like being conscious of what you're putting into this relationship, what you're giving is super important, right? Like not spending all this time thinking about what you're not getting, but thinking about how can you be, like I wake up in the morning thinking like, how can I make her happy today? Like I write, little mental notes to myself. Like, what can I do to make her day better? What can I make her smile about? Like, how can I play a role in this relationship where I'm not just taking, but I'm giving? And it seems to work. When two people are committed to each other, it just works. And I have nothing negative to say about it. It's been awesome. Feel lucky because I never would have guessed that we ended up married after the tumultuous 10 years we had, years ago. Because the ring that I gave her, I bought that ring for her 10 years ago. 10 years ago. Like I met her when she was 21-year-old hot little blondie coming into the poker scene.
It is a fairy tale. It's crazy.
Yeah. So we split. We went our own ways. But I bought this engagement ring for her back then. I kept it in my safe all this time, which I imagine girlfriends I had in between were not happy about. But
did they know what it was, or was it just a black box?
I told the truth. I didn't hide it, but I never got rid of it either.
Yeah.
And then so I never expected, like after I was in my last relationship that I split from, I never expected to get back with Amanda. I was like excited about playing the field, going on a bunch of dates, meeting a bunch of women, playing the field. I was like, yeah, I'm free to check out what's out there. But then Amanda, she sort of, I figured I'd put her in my Rolodex, put her in my rotation. So I went to dinner with her. We had like a date, if you will. And she's like, and I told her, I was being totally upfront. I said, I went out with a girl the night before, whatever. And then she said to me, she's like, I get it. I don't like it. I'm not doing it, but you do you. And I was like, ooh, she came for real. She came serious, and I didn't expect that from her based on, the way that she was when she was much younger. So that really won me over. She was very vulnerable, open, and honest with me, at that dinner. And I saw a massive change where I'm like, now I'm thinking to myself, why should I continue to chase my dream girl when she's like right in front of me, And it really just clicked. And it was like, yeah, no, we're just going to, and we did it fast. Like we started hanging out in September. By New Year's Eve, we were engaged. By May, we were married.
Yeah. That is quick. That's a good story, though. I mean, over 10 years, it all worked out. That's good. Any chances of a Daniel Negreanu book club? I'm into the book game right now, too. I want to, would you share what you're reading with the people?
Yeah, I think I shared on Twitter. The last book I just read was called The Partner. It's a John Grisham novel that they're supposed to be making into a movie. It was really enjoyable. It's like I really enjoy reading novels now. I never used to because it feels like I mean, it's exciting to like read it and be like, I want to know what happens next. So I've been enjoying getting into that. I just started a book that was recommended. That was written in 1937, I guess, and you can tell by the writing style. It's called Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
So a lot of principles that are very aligned with emotional intelligence today, but I think it'd be interesting to see sort of read about. It's kind of like before emotional intelligence was a buzzword. Like I did a course called Choice Center years ago that was about emotional intelligence training, and I'm reading so far. A lot of the principles are very similar.
Right.
You know, in terms of like the first chapter is called like thoughts are things, right? And it's about connecting how, you know, thinking certain ways will, you know, there's certain ways of thoughts and thinking that you can have that get you closer to your goal, and some that keep you from them. If you're constantly thinking about all the reasons why you will not succeed, you are very unlikely to succeed. But if you actually genuinely find a way to believe and stick forward with a plan and all that stuff, you're much more likely to. So, you know, obviously just kind of like self-help type stuff. So what I'm trying to do now is read a novel, then something different, a novel, something different, and switch it up. Like I read the Godfather book. That was fun. And watched the movies after like that. I've been enjoying reading. I feel smarter when I read. Like I feel like I'm at my best when I'm meditating every day and reading every day. And I've been doing both. So I'm definitely in a good place mentally. And that usually helps me with poker. Like I don't necessarily need to be playing a lot of poker to be at my best. Like I feel like if I played poker today, I'd play pretty darn good. Right. Because of all the
mentally, keeping it sharp. I buy into that. I wanted to ask you about one more thing, just a curveball, because I see you tweet about it all the time. Golden Knights and hockey. You seem to be an absolute super fan, Daniel. You're sweating all the games. You're tweeting about all the players. Coach change, big controversy. I don't know what's going on. So, you know, are you involved with the Golden Knights? Like, do you want to be the owner of the Golden Knights one day? Like what's your situation with the Golden Knights?
No, I had an opportunity to buy a piece of the team. I chose not to because it just was a very big investment and it's a long-term thing. It just didn't seem like, you know, it was way too expensive, basically. So I didn't, buy in. But I set up a separate Twitter account because I figured like a lot of my followers don't want to hear hockey stuff all the time. So I have another Twitter handle called NHL Hockey Bets, and I also post my picks every day with a spreadsheet of my bets and how I'm doing. We've been on a roller coaster this year. Huge December, terrible January, but we're like up 2 units on the year. So I have fun with that. As far as like being involved with the team on that level, I don't have any interest, but I love the game of hockey. It's my favorite thing to talk about. I've been approached to do some podcasts, some hockey podcasts and different things like that. Really, I went on Spit and Chicklets, which is a very famous one.
Yeah.
Hockey Central in the last couple of weeks. So I'm a huge hockey fan. I remember when I was a teenager, I thought to myself, like a dream life would be able to play video games, watch hockey, bet hockey. And that's what I did back then. And I'm 45 years old now, and I basically get to do that. Although video games now for me is chess, which I suck at. Bill Perkins beats me all the time. I had to stop playing him. It was too embarrassing.
That's great. Daniel, thanks for taking the time today and taking me through a bunch of those things. We covered a lot. I mean, poker strat, poker industry, life in general, but it's been a real honor. I mean, I wouldn't be playing poker if it wasn't for you. You're the face of poker in Canada. And so I owe you a lot. I think the industry owes you a lot, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Well, appreciate it. I'm curious, when is the next Party Poker tour event, like live, Party Poker live event?
There's one in Uruguay just this month, man. Just this month. Are you going to be planning to travel into any of these events before I let you go?
So that's the thing. Like, I've never actually attended, because obviously when I was with PokerStars, I was at PokerStars event. Yeah. I've never attended a Party Poker live event, but I'm definitely curious, and I definitely want to throw one on my calendar that makes sense, and hang with the boys. Seems like a good festive crew. I get along really well with the people that are in charge there and stuff like that. So I would imagine it'd be fun to check out an event. So maybe not this month because I'm on this thing, but I'll take a look at the calendar, because I saw one of the questions on the Ask Negreanu was when I would be playing a Party Poker event, and I'd say it's a favorite to probably happen in 2020.
Amazing. Perfect. That sounds good. Well, maybe I'll see you there then. All right, Daniel. Thanks so much for your time.
All right, guys.
Big thanks again to Daniel Negreanu for coming on the show and taking the time to talk with me, man. That was really cool. I mean, 2 weeks in a row, Mike Sexton, Daniel Negreanu. I don't know how we can top this. I think this is it. We need Elon. Anyone have a Elon Musk contact? That's the only way we can go up from here. Big thanks again, Daniel. But let's get to the JS Poker Hero competition, our weekly competition here on the podcast. If you're following along with the show, the idea is we have one representative from the community that we send into a big tournament on Party Poker every week, and they represent the podcast. They try and make a run. Hopefully we can print off a Cinderella story one of these times, but either way, I enjoy the sweat of watching our representative play. So last week's competition, Tom Dubaves on Twitter guessed the correct answer first, so he is the winner this week. He's won a $215 KO ticket for this Sunday. So Tom Dubaves, you are the winner. The Twitter handle goes by ZVAIGNEFRENKS. There you go. So you're going to get that ticket. Good luck on Sunday, my friend. We will be sweating. This week's competition, I thought, why don't we do a closest finish competition for me in the knockout series? I'm going to be playing this Friday. I have a home game on Party Poker. You're all welcome to come and play. I'll be streaming on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/PokerStaples. And that starts at 8 p.m. UK, 9 p.m. Central European Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific Time. But an hour and a half after that home game starts, when I'm in it, there is actually a Knockout Series event. It's a $530 buy-in, and it's a mix-max tournament, which means it starts six-handed, and then after we're through the money and we're like deeper into the tournament, it goes four-handed. So I'm really excited about this because it should be just a fun format, like play short-handed, sort of be able to mix it up, and when the money's on the line, playing four-handed, final couple tables should be really fun. So guess my finish position, closest to, or if you get right on it, and the first to guess the number is going to get that ticket. Now, you have to guess before the tournament starts. We're not going to allow you to guess when there's 10 people left. That's not going to work. So you have to guess before then for it to be eligible, but that's the rules of the competition. So best of luck. Use the hashtag on Twitter, hashtag JSPokerHero. I think I'm going to take it down, so lucky person is going to get first place. You've got the right guess. But that's it for this week's JS Poker Hero. And that's it for the show this week. Thank you all so much for taking the time out of your schedule to listen in. I hope you enjoyed it. Any feedback you have, or if you want to get a hold of me, you can always hit me up on Twitter at Jaime Staples. That's going to be it. Until next week, we'll see you later.